Good afternoon. Today you're going to continue the work that you started on Tuesday, investigating projectile motion. On Tuesday, you started the first of 5 activity centers. Center number 1 was about learning how to tell when something hits the ground. Prior to that, we took quite a few notes about how to tell what's the maximum height that a projectile reaches and how to write the equation of a projectile. So get out your notes from Tuesday to help you with the work today, but also let's do a quick review of what it is that you learned on Tuesday. The first part of Tuesday's lesson was about understanding how to write an equation that represents projectile motion for the height of the object at any time t. To write this equation, we know that there are 3 main factors that affect the path of the object. The first is gravity. Gravity is what makes it a parabola at all, and so it ends up being our primary factor and the a value of our equation. The second most important factor that affects the path of the parabola is the initial velocity with which the object is launched or thrown. So that becomes our b value in the equation. The final factor is the height from which the object is thrown, or the initial height. And so once we know those 3 values, the gravity, the force with which it was thrown, and the height from which it was thrown, we can put in those a, b, and c values into our quadratic equation, and we have our function of the height at any time t. The second thing we learned to do on Tuesday was to tell what the maximum height of the object would be during its path. We knew that this maximum height occurred at the vertex of the parabola, and so the first thing that we had to do was find the time at which this occurred, which is the line of symmetry, or the middle of the parabola. And so to find that, we take negative b over 2a. But this just gives us the time it takes to get to the highest point. If we want to know the actual height of the object at that time, we have to take the time that we get from taking negative b over 2a, and we have to plug it into the height equation. So we plug it in for t in the equation that we wrote. The final thing that you learned on Tuesday was how to tell how long it takes for the object to hit the ground. We talked about how in the parabolic path, the ground is represented by the x-axis, and so when it hits the ground is the x-intercepts. And the best way to find the x-intercepts of the quadratic equation is to use the quadratic formula. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, when you do that, you generally get 2 answers, and those 2 answers for these problems tend to be one positive and one negative number. We talked about on Tuesday that the positive answer is the one you want to take, because we're looking for a time, how long it takes to hit the ground, and it only makes sense for that to be a positive answer. It doesn't make sense for that answer to be negative. So when you get your 2 answers, one positive and one negative, you're going to actually go with the positive one as how many seconds it takes for the object to hit the ground. Today you're going to continue exploring these concepts by looking at 4 more activity centers. Center number 2 is going to just practice with those things that we learned on Tuesday so that you don't forget them. And then on center number 3, you're actually going to do a technology simulation of some of the problems that you've already done. And then in center number 4, you're going to research and read an article about the tradition of firing guns into the air in celebration and what that looks like around the world and why that's dangerous. In center number 5, then you're going to take that further, and you're going to calculate out how far a bullet can travel when it's shot into the air and talk about why that might be dangerous. It is the expectation that you will get all of these centers done today, including on center number 5, you're going to make a small poster and a visual representation of what you learned. So it's important that you work closely with your group and stay on task and stay focused, and you'll have plenty of time to get everything done you need to get done today.